This video is now in session, and Nevada will be a very important state to watch in 2022. The Democrats in previous years have made gains in Nevada with the help of Harry Reid and Barack Obama, but that may all shift in 2022, and that may cost them the majority in the Senate. If we look at this map that I made, this is basically all of my projections as of now, the forecast for the 2022 Senate race. And I'll get to the reasoning of this entire map in a future video, but let's just look at the numbers. So Republicans are projected under this map to get 50 of the Senate seats, and the Democrats 49. The Democrats need one seat to have the majority, and the Republicans need one seat to have the majority. That seat lies in Nevada, and the reason why Nevada is more important is an important state is because if we look at the polls, this wrong race, but historically this state has been blue. But if we look at the polls in the Senate race, what you'll see is that Adam Laxalt has actually been winning in a lot of these polls against Catherine Cortez Masto, who is currently the incumbent senator of Nevada. And this is just 6 years after Catherine Cortez Masto was able to beat Joe Heck in that election and take over Harry Reid's seat. Now, the fact that Catherine Cortez Masto did not get a majority in the 2016 election should be even more worrying for the Democratic Party, because it shows that she doesn't have the popularity that someone like Harry Reid had in the 2010 election, which was a wipeout year for the Republicans, where he got 50.3% of the vote, a slim but a majority nonetheless. So the fact that she did not get a majority of the vote, and she was not close to getting a majority of the vote, should be relatively worrying. And it's not only because of the Senate race, but it's also because of Nevada as a whole. Let's take a look at Nevada's gubernatorial race. So if we go to the polls, and obviously polls should always be taken with a grain of salt, but in almost every single one of these polls, both Democratic and Republican sponsored, you'll see that Steve Sisolak, the incumbent governor, has not reached a majority in all but one of these polls, and OH Predictive Insights has this pollster has leaned relatively left in every single poll that it has made in comparison to other pollsters, and even they 3 months after making this poll, said that Steve Sisolak, under their tabulation, was chosen by 46% of their sample size compared to Dean Heller's 33%. Now, obviously, 33% is not a high number, but Steve Sisolak doesn't have a high number either. He doesn't have a majority of the vote, which could signal that a lot of voters in Nevada who were trending Democratic are now reevaluating their faith to the Democratic Party. If we look at the voter registration and the party affiliation numbers, you'll see that in the past 3 months, more Democrats have moved to the Republican Party in Nevada than the other way around. So in February, what we see here is that 508 Democrats moved to the Republican Party, while only 152 moved from the GOP to the Dems. If you look at nonpartisan voters, 838 moved to the Democrats, but 1,000 moved to the GOP. And if you look at the numbers over 3 months, then yeah, it's a pretty stark difference. A 700 voter a 700 voter difference here between these two changes, and here it's also around 700 voters. Now, 700 voters is not a lot, but it's relatively indicative of the mood in Nevada, and that is mainly caused by the lack of improvements to their economy. Nevada primarily relies on both mining and tourism. Now, tourism has been heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. In Nevada, the pandemic shut down many casino businesses, and it has laid off many workers. Fast forward to 2022, and there is a recovery starting to be made in Nevada, but it's not a very quick one. It's been very slow, and as we've seen in the 2010 elections, many Americans are not willing to be patient to see long-term economic gains. They want to see economic gains in the short term, and the fact that the Democrats haven't been able to really do that in Nevada is likely to be to their detriment in 2022. Other factors include the housing prices in Nevada. In Vino, many of us have seen in national news how Vino has increased, how their housing market has exorbitantly increased over the past 2 years because there is a very high demand for housing in Vino, but not enough supply, which necessarily isn't the Democrats' fault, but nonetheless they bear responsibility given that they are in charge of, because they are the incumbents in Nevada. And ultimately, what this means is that rent prices are increasing a lot to the point where a lot of individuals are priced out of their own communities, and a lot of houses cannot be attained by working class Nevadans because they've just increased too much in price. Another factor, gas prices. Now, we all know that gas prices have increased nationally, but these increases are more pronounced in the West, where you see in Nevada, the price of gas per gallon is at $5.08, which is a very high price when you compare it to a state like Texas, which is at $3.78. So none of these factors are working out in the Democrats' favor, and it could represent a bad trend for the Democratic Party because Nevada has a ton of Latino voters, and Latino voters are the main voters in Nevada that are questioning their allegiance to the Democrats in Nevada. If we look at previous elections, let's go to here, you'll see that it's Nevada is very much similar to Florida, and I said this in the last video that talked, about the congressional Democrats, and what you'll see here is that large gains were made between 2004 and 2008 by Obama in both Nevada and Florida. Florida went from Bush 5.5 percentage points to Obama by 2.8 percentage points. So that's a 7.8 percentage point shift for the Democratic Party. If you look at Nevada, these shifts are even more pronounced: 2.6 or negative 2.6 to plus 12.5, which is a 15% point increase for Obama. But since then, Nevada has shifted in every single election towards the Republican Party. Between 2008 and 2012, Nevada went from 12.5 percentage points in favor of Obama to 6.7 percentage points. Between 2012 and 2016, it went from 6.7 to 2.4, and in 2020, there was a slight shift to the Republican, to Donald Trump from 2016. So if this works, which I'm not sure if it's going to work, but anyway, it doesn't work. But Nevada has been shifted towards the Republicans over the past couple of years, presidentially speaking, and in the Senate, there could be worrying signs that the Senate seat there goes to the Republican Party. In the House, there are also worrying signs that two of the Democratic incumbents in Nevada could be flipped to the Republican Party because of the Democrats' gerrymander. Basically, what the Democrats did is they made their map from one solid Democratic seat and two Republican-leaning seats to one less solid Democratic seats and two very not solid Democratic seats. And because of that, a lot of people are saying that there is a chance that two of those three seats can flip to the Republican Party. The Kirk Political Report says that District 3, which is held by Democratic Susie Lee and Stephen Horsford's seat in District 4, they are all rated as toss-up by the Kirk Political Report. So all of these are worrying signs, and it's not like the Democrats in Nevada have a game plan. Like their own party in Nevada is kind of messed up because the main Democratic Party went from being in control of the Democrats to then being in control of the Democratic Socialists of America. And now you have a division between the progressives in Nevada and the moderates, the Harry Reid machine versus the Bernie Sanders supporters. So yeah, it's a worrying sign, and it's an important thing to take note of for the Democratic Party, not only because it may lose them the Senate in 2022, but it's also indicative of wider trends of Hispanics and Latinos who voted for Obama now shifting back to the Republican Party. In Florida, Hispanics and Latinos in Miami-Dade County, a lot of them went to Trump after voting for Hillary Clinton in 2016 because they felt like their issues and their core values weren't congruent with the Democratic Party. The same thing in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas, and now the same thing might happen in Nevada. So it is important for the Democrats to note that, and if they don't, then otherwise Nevada could very well end up like another Florida. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.